standing here to see all of you because in this one room, I have family members, I have close friends, I have former school teachers, and a whole bunch of teenagers, and I love teenagers. And I spent 21 years in student ministry, and in fact, and I've never called him this before, Mr. Treadwell, who was Blake to me for all those years, grew up in my youth group, and so Blake is very special to me, and I appreciate the attention from Ms. Sears. And so I hope you learned something today and enjoy this little ride through history. We're going to start in about 1845, and we'll end up in 1970. Guy Handley III stood on this very stage in 1976, and he delivered his valedictorian speech. He began by saying, "I believe my great-great-grandfather, William Anderson Handley, for whom this school is named, would be honored and proud tonight as his great-great-grandson stands here on this stage. And he would also be proud that I have mentioned his name, because he always liked to receive praise and hear his name called." Folks, at that very moment, every light in this auditorium went out, and it was pitch black dark. And for 10 long seconds at least, there was no sound, and no one could see anything. It was as dark as midnight. And then all of a sudden, the lights did come back on. And Guy Handley, looking very startled on this stage, said, "I believe he just heard me." Someone once said, most people carry in their hearts a picture of the land of their childhood. And while other impressions fade, this picture of childhood grows stronger and stronger. But long before this Handley High School building came to be that you just saw, and it's the same building that you have classes in, long before that, Roanoke's first school was called the Roanoke Academy. In the early 1830s, just as settlers were coming over out of Georgia and down from Tennessee and the Carolina mountains, they were entering this new territory, and the surrounding land that we are occupying today housed the very first store in Roanoke. It also housed the first blacksmith shop, which was operated by slave labor, this being 1830s, and a post office filled this area. The Roanoke Academy was a private school, and the first school building was erected in 1848 on what is now the corner of Handley Avenue and the corner of Main Street. And later, Peter Mitchell, who also happened to be the father-in-law of W.A. Handley, bought that school building, and he remodeled it, and it was used as a family dwelling for many years. Reading textbooks such as these, recounting the supposedly Christian morals and leadership of Confederate generals, such as the book on the left is about General Robert E. Lee, and the one on the right is about General Thomas Stonewall Jackson. Representing the Institute was the Roanoke Male and Female College Company, who sold shares of stock. And here in this picture you see where John Victor Stevens bought shares at $25 each. And those were 2 3/5 shares at $25 each. The certificate is signed by M.J. Pickle, who is president of the Roanoke Male and Female College Company, and then Benjamin Franklin Weathers, the secretary. After the Roanoke Institute burned in 1891, the Roanoke Normal College was built on the corner of Bunn Street and West Point Street, which is just to my left. You know this corner right out there. And the Roanoke Normal College cost $15,000 to build in 1891. During the fall term of 1901, the same season, the W.A. Handley Manufacturing Company opened their doors for the first time, and Roanoke began to boom during this era. The college enrolled 292 students. The cost of board was between $8 and $10. That all depended on whether or not you wanted to do your own washing. Classes offered were music, art, elocution, academics, physical culture, and commercial classes. Teachers were graduates of the best colleges, the newspaper said. and students were under Christian influences, the newspaper said. And it was also a magnificent building, and the students considered it a pleasant home life for those who boarded at the institute. Tuition at the normal college was advertised as free. Now, Wedowee and Moffett both at the same time had a normal college also, but their tuition was not free. And I'll show you why. In 1890, a saloon was located on Main Street where Trent's Pharmacy later was located. We don't remember that, but it was on the right side, the left side of Main Street. That saloon was located there, but the city closed down the saloon, and then they began to operate their own saloon-type store called the Roanoke Dispensary. Records show, and I've made pictures there for you, records show that the city of Roanoke spent thousands of dollars a month stocking the dispensary with whiskey, beer, corn liquor, and such. And then if you turn over to the very back of this big, thick Roanoke Dispensary book, you'll find that in the back it shows an entry of $1,000 being given to the Roanoke Normal College on a monthly basis. So that's why the tuition was free. On a Sunday evening in 1923, just as citizens were arriving for their evening church services all around town, the large red fire bell, which is still located on Chestnut Street, it was on that night, it rang out while the bucket brigade and the LaFrance brand new fire engine and practically the whole town rushed to this corner right out here, only to find that the college was inflamed and it was too late to even attempt to save the beloved building. Fortunately, Roanoke wasn't completely without a school building. In 1907, a new building was erected just behind the normal college. You see to the far right, behind the burned shell of the Roanoke Normal College, see to the far right, you see another school building? It's that building. So it was already built, and they called it the annex. It had been used as an overflow annex, but it became the sole building for education in 1923. In 1907, only 2 years before his death, William Anderson Handley and his wife Adelia gave all of the land to the school, which occupied school property. The name Handley High School officially became the name of your school following the benevolent gift of the Handley family. That's how your school had its name, 1907. Noah Webster is considered in history as the schoolmaster of the nation. He developed the blue-back speller used at Handley and almost every other school in America. He once said, "Discipline our youth in early life in sound maxims of moral, political, and religious duties." From this book you see on the screen, the blue-back speller, spelling is learned by phrases such as, "Never spend your money before you have it," and "Good manners begin at home." In the early days of the 20th century, a peddling wagon traveled around town and even out into the rural areas, offering items for sale that might not be obtainable any other way. Once the automobile arrived, vendors manipulated trucks to be able to haul useful items in the same way. They became known as the rolling store. Families could even buy school supplies, such as pencils, ink, bottles, slates, and paper. And then the county provided a rolling library that also received Roanoke with books to be borrowed from the library truck. In 1934, the Roanoke Literary Club donated books and raised money to purchase additional books for a library. This very first library was housed on Main Street in the back of a store called Mrs. Pearson's Dress Shop. And that dress shop was right across from the old City Cafe. These ladies had compiled 800 books in the back of Mrs. Pearson's Dress Shop, and they took turns stacking that makeshift library. By the way, if you look at the Randolph Leader this week, under 80 years ago, in the backward glances, notice that Vanessa Burnside had put something in there about this rolling library. Isn't that a wonderful picture? And that's made right out here on West Point Street. So be sure you look at your backward glances tonight. In 1926, the Handley Elementary School was built upon the hill where the mighty Roanoke College once stood. Only this building faced West Point Street. With its wainscoted walls, mint green chair railing, maple flooring, and large 9/9 window panes that lined all three outside walls, the building became an endearment to thousands of students. Bonnie Sue Knight taught 32 years in that one building. At one time, a lunchroom was housed in the basement, but then later the lunchroom was moved to the basement of the auditorium. A steel catwalk was built across West Point Street above the traffic. Before the catwalk was built, there was a crossing guard that was hired to help students cross the street safely to go to lunch.